You ever watch somebody smile through a disaster so hard it actually makes the chaos worse? Like when a guy says, "Nah, my car is fine," and the hood is literally smoking at the red light. That is Crystal Dynamics right now. Because on March 19, 2026, they got hit with layoffs again. 20 more people gone. And every single time this happens, the statement comes out dressed like it is going to prom. Highly polished, truly calm. And we remain fully committed. Brother, committed to what? The evacuation. This is the 4th round in a year. For the 4th time. At that point, it is not restructuring. It is the studio equivalent of somebody saying they are just a little under the weather while their house slides into the ocean. And that is the part that drives me insane. Because people hear only 20 and their brain shuts off. They go, not that bad, industry is rough, could be worse. No, that is fake perspective. Because context is the whole story. 20 at a giant publisher is one thing. That same number at a studio that keeps getting cut while trying to convince you that 2 big Tomb Raider games are totally, definitely, absolutely still humming along. That is not small. That is a warning light with a migraine. And I know how this goes online. The second you point that out, somebody shows up, acting like they work in investor relations. Layoffs do not always affect development. Yeah, and a missing pilot does not always affect the flight until the exact second it really does. What makes this so ugly is the performance around it. Every time the studio posts one of these updates, it is the same corporate spell. Strategic alignment, future focus, wholly dedicated. Key projects remain unchanged. Sure, and I remain fully committed to eating healthy while holding a burrito the size of a fire extinguisher. The wording is there to calm you down. That is its job. It is not there to tell you the truth. It is there to make collapse sound organized. Because the truth is simpler than the PR version. If you keep taking people out of a studio, the studio changes. Shocking, I know. Very advanced math. Turns out humans were involved. A game studio is not a brand name. It is not a cool trailer font with dramatic drums. It is people. It is the animator who knows why a scene feels wrong before anybody else does. It is the environment artist who can save 3 weeks because they already solved this exact stupid problem 2 years ago. It is the veteran who remembers why a mechanic got cut the first time, so the team does not waste 6 months rediscovering pain like archaeologists of bad management. That stuff matters. And once you lose enough of it, you cannot just slap fully committed on top like it is Flex Seal for morale. Now, to understand why this keeps happening, you have to go back to the perfect dark mess. Crystal Dynamics had been helping on that game for years. That was not just random side work. That was money coming in, stability, a reason to have more people employed than one project alone might support. Then, Microsoft pulled the plug on Perfect Dark in 2025. And when that happened, the whole did not just vanish because someone said shifting priorities in a calm voice. That is the part people miss with game studios. When a project disappears, the damage does not end at the cancelled game. It spreads, it rolls downhill, it lands on payroll, it lands on team planning, it lands on the people who suddenly do not have a project code attached to their job anymore. And companies love pretending this stuff is all modular, like you can just drag little developer icons from one project to another and boom, problem solved. That is not how any of this works. Various teams do unique things. Specific projects have individual needs. Diverse people carry separate chunks of knowledge. So, when a contract dies and the company decides the cheapest answer is just cutting people loose instead of absorbing the cost, you are not watching a tactical adjustment. You are watching panic with legal review. And now, Crystal Dynamics is in that awful zone where every new cut makes the next cut easier. That is what really creeps me out. Because once a studio starts living like this, the atmosphere changes. Everybody knows it, nobody says it. But everybody knows it. People stop thinking long term. Why would they? Why pitch the ambitious idea? Why fight for polish? Why commit to a 5-year vision when the office feels like a game show called Guess Who Still Has Healthcare? That kind of environment kills momentum without needing some dramatic public explosion. It just drains the place efficiently, like corporate carbon monoxide. And that is why the "we are fully committed to Tomb Raider" line lands so weird. It might even be sincere. I am not saying every person at that company is lying. I am saying sincerity does not magically create capacity. You can be committed and still be cooked. In fact, that is most game development disasters. A bunch of dedicated people, trapped inside bad management, trying to build a miracle out of shrinking time, shrinking trust, and a Slack channel full of cheerful lies. And if you have been around long enough, this pattern should look familiar. This is the part where fans start bargaining. Maybe it will not affect the game. Perhaps the cuts will support roles. Possibly the remaining team is more focused now. Yeah. Maybe I am the next king of Sweden. Let us all dream. The reason people do this is because fans hate uncertainty. We do. Everybody does. When there is a franchise you love, your brain wants to protect the future version of it. So, you start making excuses on the company's behalf. Because the alternative is admitting the thing you are waiting for might come out half finished, technically busted, or just weirdly empty. That is not stupidity. That is attachment. But attachment makes people easy to manage. Because once the audience wants to believe, corporate language barely has to work. It just has to keep the hope alive long enough for pre-orders to open. And that brings me to the remake, Legacy of Atlantis. Even the name sounds like they tested it on people who own replica swords. Now look, I get why they are doing it. Remakes feel safer, less risk, known character, known tone, built-in nostalgia, easier marketing, easier promise. You are not asking players to trust your new vision. You are asking them to remember an old feeling and assume you can still deliver it. That is a much easier sale. But here is the problem. Remakes only work if the people making them understand what made the original hit in the first place. And no, that does not mean make it shinier. Every publisher in the world thinks nostalgia is just old things with ray tracing. It isn't. Tone matters. Pace matters. Tension matters. The weird, lonely magic matters. The feel matters. That is the word everybody ignores. Feel. You can rebuild every wall, every room, every ledge, every texture, and still miss the point completely if the game does not feel right. And if you are cutting veterans while making a remake that depends on feel, that is not a little issue, that is the issue. Because the people who carry that instinct are usually the exact people companies label expensive. Funny how that works. The people most likely to protect the soul of the thing are also the first ones finance starts side-eyeing when the spreadsheets get hungry. And that is where this stops being just a Crystal Dynamics story and becomes a bigger industry story. Studios keep treating experience like it is optional until launch gets close. Then, suddenly, everybody acts shocked that the game needs another year and 3 emergency outsourcing partners just to stand upright. Like, wow, who could have predicted that constantly firing the adults in the room might create problems? Absolute mystery. And then there is Amazon hanging over this whole thing. Because Amazon Games is publishing the next Tomb Raider stuff, and some people hear that and go, okay, good, maybe that means stability, maybe. But big company money does not automatically mean healthy development. It just means the trailer will look expensive. That is different. A publisher can fund a game and still have no clue what shape the team is in. A publisher can back a project while the people actually making it are one bad quarter away from another blood sacrifice to the gods of efficiency. And honestly, that is the real poison here. The split between what the audience sees and what the workers live. You see logos. You witness key art. You observe a statement. They see coworkers vanish. You see fully committed. They see another meeting on the calendar with a title that could ruin lunch. You see future releases. They see who stopped logging in. That gap matters. Because once you understand that gap, you stop reading corporate reassurance like it is information. You start reading it like what it actually is, mood management. And before anybody says, I am being unfair, let me say this clearly. I do not think the devs still there are the problem. Not even close. If anything, they are probably carrying this whole thing on their backs while trying not to openly lose their minds. Those are the people I feel for. Because imagine trying to make a big game while every few months, the message is basically, we appreciate everyone's contributions. Anyway, security is downstairs. How are you supposed to do your best work like that? How are you supposed to think creatively when the vibe is survivor's guilt with task tracking? You are not. You are surviving. You are patching holes. You are trying to keep momentum alive while pretending morale isn't in the basement eating drywall. That is not how great games are made. Miracles can happen, sure. But you should not build expectations around miracles. That is how fans keep getting played. So here is where I land on this. If you love Tomb Raider, do not act like this story means nothing. Do not do the fan thing where you protect the brand harder than the company protects the staff. That is insane behavior. They are not paying you. Pay attention. That does not mean doom posting. It does not mean writing the obituary today. It means using your eyes. A studio getting cut 4 times in 12 months is not stable. A studio trying to ship major games while losing that many people is not in a healthy place. A company repeating the same calming line every time does not magically make the math less ugly. And please, please, do not pre-order based on cinematic nostalgia and emotional hostage-taking. Wait, see gameplay, see performance, see what reviewers say after the embargo fairy dust wears off. Watch how the game moves. Observe how it holds together. Notice whether the conversation sounds excited or defensive. Because when a studio is this shaky, patience is not negativity. It is self-respect. That is really the whole thing. People keep asking, is Crystal Dynamics cooked? I do not know. But I do know this: when a company keeps saying everything is fine while people keep leaving, the words are not the part I trust the pattern. And right now the pattern looks awful. That is what makes this so depressing. Crystal Dynamics should feel like one of those names that gives people confidence. Instead, it feels like one of those names where everybody lowers their voice before saying, man, I hope they pull it off. That is not excitement. That is concern, wearing a fandom hoodie. And maybe they do pull it off. I am serious. Maybe the people still there pull off a miracle and ship something great in spite of all this. It happens. Game developers have been dragging impossible projects across the finish line since the dawn of bad executive decisions. But if they do, it will be because the people carried it. Not the messaging. Not the restructuring. Not the polished LinkedIn condolences. The people. So when you look at this story, do not just look at the franchise. Look at the pattern. Look at the exits. Look at how often the company needs to reassure you. Because the more often they say, do not worry, the more I start checking where the fire is. And in this case, I think everybody can smell the smoke